Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
It's October 19th. It's already 8:22. Don't have to do very much class. And so today we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam 3:8-12, Canto 3, Chapter 8, Text 12. So we're going to start with the Sanskrit responsively, one word of the Sanskrit at a time. Chatur, Yuganam, Cha, Sahasram, Apshu, Svapan, Svayo Diritaya, Svashakya, Kala Akyaya, Siddhita, Karma Tantra, Lokan, Apitan, Dadrishe, Svadehe. Now we'll do Sanskrit one line at a time responsively. Chatur Yuganam Cha Sahasramapshu Svapan Svayodiritaya Svasakcha Kalakyaya Sadita Karma Tantro Lokan Apitan Dadrishe Svadehe Chatur Yuganam Cha Sahasramapshu Svapan Svayodiritaya Svashakcha Halakyaya Sadita Karma Tantro Lokan Apitan Dadrishe Svadehe Chatur Yuganam Cha Sahasramapshu Svapan Svayodiritaya Svashakcha Kalakyaya Sadita Karma Tandro Lokan Apitan Dadrishe Svadehe Chatur Yuganam Cha Sahasramapshu Svapan Svayodiritaya Svashakcha Kalakyaya Sadita Karma Tantro Lokan Apitan Dadrishe Svadehe
Yuganam cha sahasram apsu.
Chatur yuganam sahasram yapshu.
Svapan sayodirata svasakya.
Svapan svayodirataya spashakya.
Kalakya yasharita karatatro.
Kalakya sajita karma tantro.
Kana pitanda vishe svadehe.
Lokana pitam dashishe svadehe.
Chatur Yuganam Cha Shahasramapsu
Chatur yuganam sahasramapsu.
Shapan Trayodiditra Shashaktya
Svapan svayodirataya spashakya.
Alakya Yasadita Karma Tantro
Kalakshaya sajita karma tantro.
Lokana Pitar Dari Shre Swadehe
Lokana pitam dashishe svadehe. Anyone online or in person like to chant the verse?
Chaturyuganam cha sahasramapsu
Yuganam tasahasramapshu.
Svapan svayotiritaya svashaktya
Svapan svayodiritaya svashakya.
Kalakya yasadita karma tantro
Kalakyaya sadhita karma tantro.
Lokana pitan dadrishe svadehi
Lokana pitam datishe svadehe. Hare Krishna. We will do the translation, word for word translation, responsively. Chatu, 4. Yuganam, of the millenniums. Cha, also. Sahasram, 1,000. Apshu, in the water. Svapan, dreaming in sleep. Svaya, with his eternal potency. Udir or Udiritaya, for further development. Svashakya, by his own energy. Kala Akyaya, by the name Kala. Asadita, being so engaged. Karma Tantra, in the matter of fruitive activities. Lokan, the total living entities. Apitan, bluish. Jadrishe, saw it so. Svadehe, in his own body. The translation in English. The Lord lay down for 4,000 yuga cycles in his internal potency, and by his external energy, he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Vishnu Purana, Kala Shakti is mentioned as avidya. The symptom of the influence of the Kala Shakti is that one has to work in the material world for fruitive results. The fruitive workers are described in Bhagavad Gita as mudhas or foolish. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. One thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children. And to achieve this temporary benefit, he takes the risk of all sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. Due to this polluted mentality and due to material sins, the aggregate combination of living entities appeared to be bluish. Such an impetus of activity for fruitive result is made possible by the dictation of the external energy of the Lord Kala. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namah Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pujamali Krishna Sunyavadi Krishna Jesus Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vedikadara Shri Vasadi Gauravani Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Shri
Krishna Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Okay. Good morning and good afternoon for our European congregation.
Contingent from the European provinces.
So we're talking Srimad Bhagavatam here. So I'll set the scene a bit, and actually, as we do that in Srimad Bhagavatam, often in Srimad Bhagavatam class, we take some time to set the scene, like who's talking, where are we, what's happening, and then actually Srimad Bhagavatam is a lot of setting the scene. Actually, sometimes I think like, when do we actually get to the Bhagavatam? Because it's like most of the time is like setting the scene for who's talking the Bhagavatam at this time and where are we in, because the Bhagavatam has been spoken so many times down a lineage, down a Parampara, lineage of disciplic succession. So it's like, who is speaking now and what are we speaking about? But actually, as we'll experience in this class and in the Bhagavatam, that it's all transcendental. It's all transcendental, and there's really no difference between setting the scene to discuss Bhagavatam and the essence that is Bhagavatam. It's non-different. This is the joy. This is the wonderfulness of bhakti. I'll mention a little bit more about that. But setting the scene. So this is Maitreya Rishi is speaking here. He's beginning to respond to Vidura's inquiries. So it's Vidura and Maitreya Rishi are speaking. But so he's about, so actually the verses before this, so this is chapter 8. And so the verses before this, Maitreya Rishi is setting the scene, preparing to discuss Bhagavatam. And he's like setting this, like, where's this coming from? What's the lineage? What's the parampara? So he's describing, so we're kind of, so far in Bhagavatam, before this, we've been used to like the, Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya, Sukadev Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit on the banks of the Ganges. We've been like used to this kind of transmission of Bhagavatam. But here we're introduced to a new one, which is the Lord himself speaking Bhagavatam as in the form of Sankarshana. It's a few verses before this, Sankarshana. And so before this, Maitreya Rishi is setting up this parampara of where this Bhagavatam knowledge that he's about to get into, that he is getting into now, he's about to get into more, where it's coming from. And it's actually a conversation between Sankarshana, the Lord, the personality of Godhead, Supreme Personality of Godhead, in this form of Sankarshana, speaking to Sanat Kumara. So that's one of the 4 Kumaras. So anyone who has, I think everyone's here is taking the advanced seminar. So that if you're in the advanced seminar, David tells the pastime. He's basically in. He's born into it. My son's here. He's got to 11 years old, so he's born into it.
You learned it.
So yes, Dr. Govinda tells a story. The four Kumaras who like
Sometimes Anandini tells the story
sometimes Anandini might tell the story.
in the advance of it.
And so the four Kumaras are approaching the gates of Vaikuntha, and they're denied access because the gatekeeper Jai Vijay they sense some impurities in the four Kumaras, so they're not let them enter into Vaikuntha because nobody's supposed to enter into Vaikuntha unless they're pure personalities. But actually, it was uh, it was impurities that were in the Jai and Vijay, so they were projecting. So like we use that for the principle of projection, that we atmata atmavan manyate jagat.
That's it. Atmavan Manyate.
Atmavan manyate jagat. So what exists within ourselves we perceive in the external. We just perceive in the universe. So it's kind of okay. Let's be careful when we're kind of criticizing others and judging others. That is probably something about ourselves that we're perceiving. I notice that myself, that I tend to appreciate qualities about others that I have within myself. I tend to notice and appreciate qualities that I particularly appreciate about myself, and I tend to judge negatively others according to things that I negatively judge and perceive about myself. So this is the four Kumaras from the Sanat Kumar, the chief Kumara, a little boy, little naked boys running around the universe for trillions of years. And so this is a conversation between Sankarshan. So Sankarshan is giving the to Sanat Kumara, who comes down to eventually to Maitreya Rishi's spiritual master, and then Maitreya. So now Maitreya is transmitting to Vidura the same Bhagavatam that came from the Supreme Lord himself. So who a little bit just again setting this scene, and again we're gonna get to the verse today, but it's all there's nowhere to get to. There's no destination. And in bhakti, the goal and the means to the goal are the same. This is the transcendental, this is the absolute nature. That the means and the process, the process to get to the goal, and the goal is the goal of it itself. So there's nowhere to get to. We can just this is all transcendently relishable. So okay, Sankarsana, who's so it's an expansion. So Sankarsana is a form of Krishna, form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's an expansion. So it's actually interesting that I like to think about that actually Krishna is always eternally residing in Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna is always Vrindavan. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, although he seemingly has pastimes in other places. But actually, those are expansions of Krishna. Krishna never actually, Krishna himself never actually leaves Vrindavan. So in other forms, other expansions, he does go. For example, like in Dvarka or in Vaikuntha, the Krishna is present as Vasudev in his Vasudev form. So Krishna expands Balaram, and then Sankarsana or Sankarsana Balaram, the same, simultaneously one and different and distinct. So Sankarsana is essentially one with Balaram, and at the same time there's some distinct forms there, but it's Krishna in his Sankarsana form, and then from Sankarsana, no, yes, so Balaram, so first from Krishna expands Balaram, and then Balaram expands into the expansions come from him, including Sankarsana comes from Balaram, although Sankarsana, Balaram, very similar. So Sankarsana is maybe the one we've seen with like thousands of hoods, like snake hoods coming behind. So so Krishna's different expansions. So from Balaram expands the Chatur Vyuha, the four expansions: Vasudev, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And Pradyumna appears as Krishna's son, and Aniruddha appears as Krishna's grandson. So that's exciting. So, um, so, but and then this verse, when we get to this verse, Maitreya Rishi is referencing Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So that's where when he says the Lord, the form of the Lord, where he's describing here is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And so how do we get to Garbhodakshai Vishnu? So the so this gets into creation. That's what the pastime, the story of creation, and that's also in Bhagavatam over and over again. We're hearing the story of creation from different sources and different speakers. And again, there's no difference in whether it's a creation story or pastime of Krishna and the gopis or Krishna and the cowherd boy forms. It's all transcendental, it's all purifying, it's all relishable. And so that's also much of the Bhagavatam is like that. And so here, so we have Sankarshana, who's speaking Bhagavatam to one of the Kumaras, Sanat Kumara, and then also Sankarshana is involved in the creation story that he is narrating. So it's interesting this kind of the relationship between Sankarshana and Mahavishnu, because there's three different Vishnus. There's three different Vishnu forms. So this Maha Sankarshana or this Sankarshana form is described in the earlier verse that Sankarshana is seated at the bottom of the universe. Where is that? Where he's meditating upon Vasudev, another expansion of Krishna. So yeah, he's Sankarshana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. And then perhaps a little more specifically, that Sankarshana is in Vaikuntha. And then there's the Mahavishnu form, Karanadakshayi Vishnu, Mahavishnu form, which is in one way it's also is one and different from Sankarshana, is an expansion, but he's reclining in the causal ocean, the Karana Jala. And so they come more on the border between the spiritual and the material realms. So from Mahavishnu's kind of exhalation, from Mahavishnu's exhalation come innumerable universes. And then within each universe, there's another form of Krishna, another form of Vishnu is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Garbhodakshai Vishnu within each universe. And that's the Vishnu form in which the lotus flower sprouts from the navel, and then Lord Brahma appears. Lord Brahma is the first living entity of the universe. And then so that's this part of the creation story where we're talking about right here. So in this verse 12, we're talking about Garbhodakshai Vishnu, this particular form, which is all Krishna, but the different forms. Just like this is all Bhagavatam. Everything I'm talking now is Bhagavatam, hopefully. Hopefully. And then and there's different parts like setting the scene or who's talking, and then the actual teaching or transmission of the knowledge. It's all one, and there's distinctions. So yeah, like the structure of the Bhagavatam, it can be like kind of a set of Russian dolls, like all these Russian dolls nested within each other. And so there's all these nested conversations within these different conversations. So this is so now we're in this we're in this other stream of Sankarshana, Sanat Kumar down to Maitreya and Vitura. But yeah, these discourses are transcendental sound. So whether it's setting up of who spoke to whom, it's not separate from the Bhagavatam itself. It's all transmission of the divine knowledge. Yeah. Okay. So now we know who we're talking about. Mahavishnu here. Oh no, this is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Karmadaksha Vishnu. So, all right. So we have this, now we're getting to this verse today, verse 12. And so we've already been discussing the Parampara. My name is Parampara Das. I'm meant to be a servant of the Parampara. And if I'm following that name, and so we mentioned that, yeah, the Parampara, ultimately all this knowledge is coming from Lord Krishna himself, and it comes through a chain of teachers. And so so what's the role of the Parampara? Here we are, and we get this translation from Prabhupada. Prabhupada is a link to the Parampara. So Prabhupada is giving this translation of this verse, and then he's giving the purport. So, like, without the purport, we just kind of be like, okay, the translation, the Lord lay down for 4,000 yuga cycles in his internal potency, and by his external energy, he appeared to be sleeping within the water when the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Shakti. He saw his transcendental body as bluish. So there's so many ways I could go with that verse, and things to talk about and speculate about, and we could go into. But then the Srila Prabhupada, what he's giving us is like the essence. What do we need to know? What do we need to get for about this verse, about this part of the Bhagavatam, about this Bhagavatam? What do we need to get? What's essential for us in this sort of, bhakti elevator, bhakti escalator that he's given us? That is like, yeah, the previous Vedic system, Vedic age. There's a step-by-step process, maybe over hundreds of lifetimes, many lifetimes, to try to get a better birth next time and rise up the ladder. And so, yeah, we're going straight to bhakti. It's like an escalator, straight to bhakti. So he's giving us like, what's the essence? What do we need to get for ourselves in this time and place and circumstance that we're in? And then that's the purport. And then whoever's speaking on this class, me today in this role, then I'm supposed to say, okay, from Prabhupada's purport, what do we need to talk about today? What are we going to talk about today? What's the discussion? Because it's class and discussion. So what's the discussion? What do I see as relevant according to hopefully some inspiration that's divinely guided, or just at least following Prabhupada's language, or just take what Prabhupada says and rearrange it in different language and give it back. So that's my role today. So yeah, without Prabhupada, the meaning of these verses would be kind of obscure, hidden, lost, and we might be missing what's essential for us to know. So he gives us what's essential, and then hopefully I can represent Prabhupada in a like current, and like bring this current into today. So yeah, so I already read the verse again. It's kind of like, well, what are we talking about in this verse? But then, all right, in Prabhupada's purport, he gives some specifics. So he mentions Kala Shakti. Kala Shakti is the Lord's external potency in the form of time. So in the material world, everything is activated by time. That's distinct from the spiritual world, where everything is activated by love and devotion and emotion, devotional emotion. Everything kind of moves in that way. Here we're kind of, time pushes us forward and moves us forward, whether we like it or not. And that's actually what's because in this, I won't go too much into it because Prabhupada doesn't mention it so much in this. Well, he does mention a little bit in this purport, but yeah, so at this point in the cosmic manifestation, the living entities are dormant, within uh dormant within one of the Vishnu forms, one of the Vishnu forms. And so so the influence of Kala Shakti then activates them, actuates them into existence, into us, not them, us, because we're all here. So activates us into this cycle, of fruitive activity. So, and yes, Kala Shakti is described as avidya, or ignorance. So just the effect of time on us is in the mode of ignorance. And it's it includes forgetfulness of Krishna, of our original position, our original source. It kind of, yes, forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with Krishna. It's an illusion, and the influence of Kala Shakti, avidya, puts us on the cycle towards fruitive activity and thinking that our fulfillment is going to lie in some sort of achievement or accomplishment or chasing the carrot on the stick or whatever, rather than our own internal eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada mentions the fruitive worker. So like, what is a fruitive worker? So fruitive worker, we can contrast that with a bhakta, someone who's devoting their lives to God, to Krishna. And so, yeah, the fruitive worker is acting for material gain. And like Prabhupada mentions here, thinking success is measured by like what's accumulated or what can be left behind, uh, sort of material legacy. Whereas the bhakta acts for in service to the supreme whole, whereas the fruitive worker is just kind of me, mine, and expansions of that, relatively limited expansions of me and mine, maybe my family, my country, my society, my culture, my community. Whereas the bhakta acts only for Krishna's pleasure, which is the supreme whole pleasure, the whole of everything. Watering the root of the tree, knowing all results belong to him. So the fruitive worker is bound by time and anxiety. The bhakta is free, even seemingly while being active, perhaps in what looks like a similar activity as the fruitive worker, but because of the consciousness and the intention, the bhakta is free even while being active in what may look like fruitive work from the external. So the fruitive worker, yeah, serving is an illusion, serving an illusion, serving what he thinks is good, perhaps, but it actually is an illusion, whereas the bhakta is serving Krishna. So, and also Prabhupada mentions like this bluish imagery, like this form of this form of Vishnu has a transcendental color, but then it's because of the polluted nature of the living entities within this form of the Lord. It's polluted. It's not the like original transcendental hue of the Lord. It's polluted mentality. So that's all things that were mentioned in the purport, but that's not what I'm going to focus on today, or what I like to focus on for discussion, which will open up very soon for discussion. So what I thought is the part of Prabhupada's purport that I wanted to highlight is that this part. So such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. So it's like, like we're talking about the influence of Kala Shakti and avidya, and so what does that actually look like for us as we're activated? Okay, so it looks like we get very enthusiastic, we get very excited to work for some temporary benefit. Temporary benefit could be some striving in our career, or accumulation of wealth or bank account, or like new car, or new relationship, or yeah, this. So we get really excited about these things that are very temporary, and it's within this context of this perpetual bondage. So this contrasting of these two terms, some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. So it's like in the prison house, like get very excited about, oh, I get to serve the commissary meal today. I get to serve I get this like little benefit here, while I serve this life sentence. But oh, I get to have this little benefit, rather than like, thinking about how to maybe get out of the perpetual bondage, how to get out of the jail completely. So one thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children. And to achieve this temporary benefit, he takes the risk of all sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. So yeah, this is so I appreciate this kind of imagery of like this person who's like, yeah, I got it all together. I kind of figured it out. I got this money in the bank. I'm gonna leave it behind, this legacy, you know, and then there's like a surprise. What's the surprise? The surprise is that actually um there was some these activities actually are going to keep you perpetually bound. It's like this unintended consequences. So this is like, oh, whoops, sorry, it's a surprise that actually didn't work. And so that's what I thought to focus on today. This kind of so yeah, what this looks like, yeah, maybe the endless striving, chasing the carrot on the stick, chasing the carrot on the stick. And then, yeah, well, okay, so Prabhupada's strong language here, like, okay, to achieve the temporary benefit, to achieve this temporary benefit, because maybe we think, I'm not like really going for some huge, like big demonic endeavor or anything. I just want to leave behind some money for my children and things like that. And certainly we can see that we see the result of like what's obviously like these big endeavors for temporary benefit within perpetual bondage, like technology and like the AI warehouses that are storing all the servers for AI and is sucking up the water and the people can't even drink water around them, or like oh, we're just do all these computers, smartphones, we need lithium for all these lithium batteries and the mining, and it's just destroying the earth. And so it's like, well, that seems pretty obvious, like the how those sinful activities will uh actually yeah keep us bonded because of the like the devastation of it. But then what about me? I just have like, just want to take care of my family and leave behind some money. And so, but yeah, but what are the means to that end? And so earlier mentioned in bhakti, the means and the end are non-different. So they're actually the same. So the goal is loving devotional service to God, and then the means to get there are non-different. So like we're achieving the goal anytime that we're in the means that and then but then with fruitive, this is a distinction between the bhakta and the fruitive worker. The fruitive worker, the means to the end actually bond us further in this karma, in this karma. So karma is the cycle of action and reaction, action and reaction. So it brings to mind in Sattva we talk about be do have, and so there can be part of this illusion, that we get from the influence of Kala Shakti, avidya, is that once once I have this job, or I have this form of success or this prestige, and then I can do what I want, and then I'll be fulfilled, I'll be free, I'll be happy. But first I need to get this and do that. And then in that endeavor to have those things or do those things in order to get that internal experience, then it's different than the means. The means of trying to get that is different than the actual internal experience of being happy and fulfilled. They're not the same. And actually, it's an illusion that they'll lead us to there. So it's like, well, first I need to have this. So to have this, I need to like maybe act out of my integrity, perhaps, to get that thing that I have, or sacrifice my health, or my integrity, some relationships, or the planet in the big scheme, like the planet maybe be sacrificed, the Mother Nature. And so so Savatov aligned with spiritual principles, that okay, this internal states of being, fulfillment, and uh, freedom, and knowledge, and eternality, and bliss, that these are birthright. These are our birthright. These are qualities of the soul. And so we don't need to do or have anything to experience those internal qualities. It's not dependent on any form of material doing or having. And then there are activities that we can engage in that will support us to connect with those internal intrinsic qualities more and more on a daily basis. And then it's different than the material do, have, be, or have, do, be, because these activities are not leading us into further karma and reaction. It's these activities are actually the same as the goal that we want, so that they're actually aligned. And that's like, yeah, be, do, have. So like when our doing and having is flowing from our being, then it's infused with these spiritual qualities. So similarly, like in this path that Prabhupada is brought to us, then there are activities to engage in, but they're different. Even though maybe externally sometimes it looks that way, like, oh, we're eating, the bhakta is eating, and the fruitive worker is eating, and the bhakta is maybe working for some money, and the fruitive worker is working for some money. The bhakta is dancing, and the fruitive worker is dancing. But it's the nature of the activity is because the consciousness and the intention is completely different. So like, yeah, coming from have, do, be, and then I'm thinking that I need to have or do something to be, then like, yeah, those means to that goal are different than the goal itself. But in true be, do, have, and then in true spiritual consciousness, bhakti consciousness, that yeah, this is my eternal, intrinsic, original consciousness that I've forgotten due to this influence of time, ignorance. And so there's I don't need to do or have anything. I just need to remember. And then there's activities that can help me to remember. And then those activities are the same as the goal itself. By engaging in those activities, then we're achieving the goal of bhakti, of having that internal experience of Satchidananda, eternality, bliss, knowledge, freedom. And so, as given by Srila Prabhupada, I'll mention couple of those activities. Mentions a couple of activities. So yeah, he recommends. So Prabhupada recommends that we there's 4 regulative principles to freedom. 4 regulative principles to freedom. Just like in the advanced seminar, we have ground rules that are principles that follow, that lead us to this freeing experience of experiencing yourself on contract, which is contract is our internal intrinsic qualities that have been dormant or been covered, and we're reintroducing ourselves to in the world too. So similarly, there's these ground rules. Prabhupada recommends these ground rules for life to support us in this endeavor. And so there, yeah, no meat no meat eating. So we'll say the no form first. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sexual activity, and no intoxication. So that's just like no. No. But actually, they're actually just like, yeah, we experienced in the advanced seminar, you had these regulative principles of freedom. They give us regulation that we can be free within that regulation, within that container. And actually, they actually correspond to positive virtues. So the negation of um, of animal killing, animal slaughter, and eating the remnants of violence, of not eating meat, the virtue is compassion, that we get to experience compassion. And then for the regulation of limiting of illicit sexual activity, then we get to experience cleanliness. Cleanliness is a virtue in our consciousness and our mind. You know, like you heard the phrase like thinking in the gutter. Get your mind out of the gutter. That means like, yeah, we're thinking about those sort of things. It's kind of dirty. So cleanliness, we get to experience cleanliness. And then by regulating ourselves, avoid, no gambling, then we get to experience the virtue of truthfulness, like making a honesty,
An honest living.
making an honest living rather than like some sort of gambling, risky endeavors like that. And then by following the regulation of no intoxication, then we get to experience the virtue of austerity, the virtue of austerity, to which austerity means to give up some short-term gratification for a more fulfilling. So it means specifically to give up a less fulfilling, quicker gratification for a longer term, ultimately more fulfilling gratification. So this is intelligent, actually, but then we need to practice austerity to fulfill that. So those are some activities to refrain to, and then there's ways to engage all of those faculties. There's ways to engage those propensities. So like, because we want to eat, so that rather than eating like, dead bodies, flesh, rotting things, we can eat things that are offerable, that are recommended to offer to Krishna, and then it's purified, and we get the results, and we get it, even if it's, it's a purifying process to cook. I'm not cooking for myself, I'm cooking for God. And then I get to experience the experience of preparing this preparation, and I'm going to be clean when I'm cooking, and I'll clean my consciousness while I'm cooking, and then I'm not going to taste the food first while I'm eating, or I'm not just going to make the sandwich and immediately take a bite of it, like without, I'm going to like, okay, I'm going to cook it, and then I'm going to practice some austerity, and put it on a special plate that's not my plate, actually, because it's not about me. I'm offering it to the Lord. I'm in service. The service is our intrinsic dharma. And so I'm going to put it on this plate. I'm going to offer it to Krishna. I'm going to chant these mantras. Mantras are purifying, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not. We chant these mantras, and it's a purifying experience. And then we get to and then we get to honor that as prashadam. So that's a way to engage that. I mean, we can, gambling. The essence of gambling is taking risks, and so we can engage our risk-taking propensity to take risks, in service to God, in service to Krishna and to Prabhupada's mission, and we can we maybe likely to get intoxicated. Well, have you ever been in a really intoxicating kirtan? Because you can jump and chant and dance and be in ecstasy. We had a little bit of intoxication this morning in the form of some, we did Guru Puja, and there's a gong happening. So yeah, we can engage that, getting high on the holy names,
Stay High Forever.
It's a Stay High Forever program.
Prabhupada's first pamphlet in 1966.
Prabhupada had promotions like
The
that.
promotion,
Stay High Forever. And then, so there is a way to engage the sexual activity, to engage, in raising and engaging, raising creating bodies for souls to come into that you raise in Krishna consciousness and having Krishna conscious family, engaging that propensity. Lady Kanta's here kind of because of that.
Say hi.
Welcome, welcome. You can express your gratitude later. So, and then what did we mention so far? We mentioned the eating and the gambling and intoxication. I think that's all.
Yeah, you covered the four.
That's the
You
four.
covered
And
the
then the ultimate positive activity to engage in is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting this mantra, it is the most recommended mantra for this age in Kali Yuga. This Kali Yuga, we're so disturbed by in quarrel and disagreement and illusionment and the effects of Kala Shakti and the Vidya, that this is the most recommended mantra for delivering ourselves from that perpetual bondage. And so Prabhupada recommends to want to take it seriously, to engage in activities that are going to lead you towards this goal of freeing yourself from perpetual bondage, and the means to the goal are the same, then to chant at least 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. Hare Krishna. I welcome any comments or particularly I'll read that part of the purport again. The fruitive workers are described in Bhagavad Gita as mudhas or foolish. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. One thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children. And to achieve this temporary benefit, he takes the risk of all sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. So I welcome particularly any sharing or questions about that aspect of how you see that in your life or anything like that, chasing these, how that applies to you or any realizations you may have about that. And of course, anything else that you'd like to share or ask at this time.
Hare Krishna. Well, I mean, thank you for the class. I mean, your class inspires me to realize that, that I will tentatively use the word simple, but the simplicity of the teaching, essential teaching of Bhagavad Gita is like your class really inspires me to remember that the simplicity is when I remember who I am, then all of these activities are natural. So there is no austerity even. These are the natural. So that's the beginning, is I need to know who I am. So otherwise the bondage is through the body and the material context and the material. So it's like your class just completely inspired me. Is like to a very simple realization. What all I need to do is remember who I am. It's like, wow. It's like that's it. And then all the complications, like, because I'm not affected by the destruction and the creation and the all of this happenings, and that's all the bondage. And also appreciated the context and that the whole universe and the seat, Sankarsana is the seat. It's like these universes are like mustard seeds in the jar. That's many universes there are, right? The universes.
In innumerable material universes.
Not planets. Like this solar system. Universe. Yeah. Like I was like, oh wow, he said universe, and I'm like, it's like the universe. So like the big thing going on with the Vishnus and all the change. That's just in every universe. And that, if I understand correctly, all of the universes are created and destroyed kind of simultaneously with the breath of Brahma. Like all of them, innumerable universes. So it's like just the minuteness of, I mean, the greatness of all that is still like just with the breath of Brahma. All the innumerable universes, all of them gone, destroyed. All this. So it's like, what's our job? I need to just know who I am. The natural activities are chanting, eating, all the virtues that just come from, they radiate from the soul. And then it's like, This is so simple. So that's my job. Just remember who I am every moment, every day. It's like, oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm really enlivened.
Jai.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I think, yeah, part of the reason for these continually going into these pastimes of the creation, understanding the creation story is it supports us in that experience of our minuteness. You know, there's like imagine a big bag of mustard seeds, and each mustard seed is a universe, and each universe has this Garbhodakshay Vishnu, which is an amazing manifestation. And so, yeah, remind us how small we are, particularly as you progress from Bhagavatam before you get to the Krishna's actual pastimes of with the gopis and his childhood pastimes. To like, we get that many times. Like, okay, you're like not important. You're not that big of a deal. You're just like a minute, infinitesimal spiritual living entity. To really get that over and over before we try to go into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I appreciate what you're sharing about. Yeah, just remembering who we are, because that's the point. The forgetfulness, the ignorance. Who am I? So that's who am I? And yeah, because Prabhupada emphasizes that this is not an artificial imposition on the mind, this Krishna consciousness. This is our original consciousness. We're forgetful of that. We're like, oh no, that's not who I am. I'm a Gators fan. I like the Florida Gators. We won last night. The Gators won last night, so I'm happy because I'm a Gators fan. But when they lose, then I'm sad. So yeah, so that's okay. So that's and then. But that's just because I was born here, in around Gainesville. My parents, I'm just a guy from Palatka. My parents went to the University of Florida, so that's who I am. That's based on my parents. But then, yeah, we even, from it's common. There's like from a trauma lens, there's a perspective from a trauma lens that like basically like our whole personality is like a trauma response. It's just some response to trauma. So like, oh, your whole personality, you like, yeah, maybe that's just that's not who you are either. That's some response to how you were needed to survive to cope with whatever was happening to you. Okay, so who am I? So who am I really? And that's what we're really getting to in this Bhagavatam. Yeah, I'm this because we understand Prabhupada teaches us that the eternal Dharma, our Dharma, our Dharma is to serve. Our Dharma is to serve. We're going to serve something, and then our eternal Dharma. So we have lots of dharmas. Occupation could be like occupation. We have lots of different occupations and things that we can occupy our time and occupy ourselves with. But the only one that's eternal, according to time, place, and circumstance, that never changes, is to be a servant of the Supreme Lord. And that is actually our original consciousness, our original position. That's actually who we are. And so, yeah, it's a simple process. Just remember who we are. And then it's not necessarily easy. But I saw Anandini had your hand raised, and then Rosa also had your hand raised. Anandini put her hand back down. But so I think we'll go to Rosa. Also.
Krishna.
See, Maturanath also has his hand up.
He's online.
I want to reflect. I also was very inspired by the activity is none different than the result. And so when we occupy ourselves in ways that are alienating, how are we surprised when the result is so frustrating and so alienating? It's what we've been doing the entire time. And thank you for that. Another thing that this talk was making me think of, I was speaking to Rachel about prasad, right? Blessed food. And something she was describing to me is how it has been seen that human beings can imbue water with a frequency based on how we're operating. And so her take was, we're preparing food which inherently has water, and by preparing it with love, we imbue it with this like frequency of love. And so I'm taking that a little bit further based on your talk, which is anything offered to God is multiplied tenfold, right? Or 100-fold, 1,000-fold, millionfold. And when we Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 2, in the purport says that God accepts the love for which things are offered him. So imbuing any whatever amount of love we can muster and giving it sincerely and genuinely, it's given back to us so many times over. And so that came to me. And then I have a question. I was looking at this and your description of like the context of what's happening here. And it said when the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities. And then it kind of describes a little bit. What I understand, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that at the dissolution, those who are still caught in their, I've got to do this, I got all of this, they don't go to like a planet or anything. They dissolve in the causal ocean and they're waiting for like the next creation. So then what I'm understanding here is this is like those people have been waiting because they're continuing their fruitive activities from the last dissolution. And this is like sprouting up from that. We're like, okay, here you go. You get another chance.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for like the scientific backing for the prasadam and viewing the prasadam, like which is it's a lot of water. Appreciate that. Yeah. And the previous purport from text 11, Prabhupada mentions like, so it's a dissolution. It is part of creation. It's a dissolution. It's not the full dissolution of the material world. He makes a distinction. So after the three worlds, the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems merged into the water of dissolution, the living entities of all the three worlds remained in their subtle bodies by dint of the energy called Kala. In this dissolution, the gross bodies become unmanifest, but the subtle bodies existed, just like the water of the material creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely wound up, as in the case in the full dissolution of the material world. So there's some like further distinctions about this particular dissolution. It's not the full dissolution of the material world. But yeah, the living entities are like in a sleeping state before they're reactivated again by Kala Shakti to again continue where they left off in their fruitive endeavors. So
what a terrible fate it sounds like to experience the end of everything and you haven't gotten very far.
like trillions of years and he still didn't make it. Yeah, well, we've experienced that a few times. I think we've experienced it a few times probably. Matura.
Yeah, Haribo, thank you for the sweet class. Very enlivening discussion. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm audible? Okay. I had something from what Devin had said that appreciating that point of knowing thyself, and then we settle into actually wanting to engage instead of it being austerity. We will then have the desire to engage. But I was also thinking that if we don't know thyself, and the whole point of bhakti is about having a relationship ultimately with Krishna. First starts with devotees, sadhu sangha, and through that we develop our faith and our sadhana and all these things to start connecting with Krishna. So if we don't know ourselves, if we're not even in connection with ourselves, what is there to have a relationship with Krishna? We don't even know ourselves. And then I really appreciated your point about instead of taking risks in gambling, we take risks for Krishna in devotional service. So, but also if we don't understand who I am and that I am a soul and I'm not the body, we'll we'll have a lot of fear to take risks because we're calculating everything according to my body and my material position. But when we're thinking I'm the soul, no, I'm meant, like I'm a part of Krishna. If I don't act for him, I'm acting against myself and I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting others. I appreciate the point, like the mass exploitation that's going on on the earth. And pretty much all that's happening, also your point of like people are coming in their karma, according to their karma, they're traumatized from their karma. So they're feeling I'm not loved, I'm not accepted, I'm not safe in this world. So it's like even billionaires are trying to amass more because they don't feel safe or they don't feel loved or they don't feel accepted. They'll never stop until they stop with these deep fears they have and realize I am the soul. So these are some thoughts. I had another thought of like some juicy discussion where you're talking a lot about Vishnu. So I was thinking about Vaikuntha, and we hear how Gopakumar from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he goes to Vaikuntha, and he's a coward boy. So he goes to Vaikuntha, and he's like, "Oh, Krishna, how are you?" And he like slaps Krishna on the back, and he's like jokes, like cracking jokes, like coward boys do, and everyone's like wide-eyed, and their mouth is open, like, "Oh my God, how is this person? How is he treating Lord Vishnu?" And so the whole mood there is awe and reverence. And then when Gopakumar goes back to Goloka Vrindavan, then Krishna's said, "Oh my dear devotee, my dear friend, where have you been? I've been missing you." And he starts like taking things and dressing Gopakumar and cowherd boy things and hugging him and saying just sweet words. And he sits down to have a meal with him, and Srimati Radharani cooks the meal, and then Krishna says, "Oh, this laddu, it's terrible, it's terrible." And Radharani's always looking to see if Krishna's enjoying the prasadam, and he's saying, "This is a terrible laddu. Here, Gopakumar, you eat this." And he like took a little bite and he gave it to him. And then Gopakumar is in ecstasy, like, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever tasted." And Krishna's just trying to give him mercy. So it's like Goloka Vrindavan's just dripping with love and loving exchanges and sentiments. So yeah, you're talking about different forms of Vishnu, and in Vaikuntha, question is like, is there really love there, or is this awe and reverence? Is there really love? Because you go to your job and you have to have reverence and for your boss, but is there love in that? So that's something coming up for me. What are your thoughts, devotees?
Thank you for sharing Prabhu. Yeah, for the sake of time, I think I'll leave it as we'll leave it as an open-ended question, a question to be in about the distinction between like the awe and reverence mood of seeing Krishna versus like the more a loving devotional mood like in Vrindavan. But Anandini, I saw you had. Yeah, thank you for everything that you shared, Matura. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome.
The fearlessness of the soul, also the fearlessness of the soul, for if we're connected with that versus like the fearfulness of the material context. So yeah, appreciate everything you shared. Anandini, did you want to share anything before we close?
Well, I noticed the time. Just so I'll keep it very short. I'm inspired by your class, Parampara. Thank you for how you started with this like far out creation and Vishnu and all the Vishnus, and then coming to like practical life for us here and now we do have. And I was contemplating on how, yeah, how I'm so trained to judge from the doing, and I can get high on my doing. I can tick things off. It's like a really good feeling. And how the external doing doesn't say much about what's happening inside. And so yeah, just I was contemplating on that and remembering a book by Richard Bach. I think it's called Illusions. He's a mechanic for cars. He has a garage, and then he goes on a journey and becomes enlightened, and decides to go back into the garage, and he just becomes an ordinary like car mechanic, and yet his consciousness is completely transformed. So I'm inspired by these points you brought that are very thought-provoking and practical. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Anandini. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Say,